testing 1 2 3 4 testing。testing 1 2 3 4。
After 30 days, I could not believe my before and after picture. I literally rolled back the hands of time.
Now, if you've ever wanted to mount a TV onto the wall, you'll know that you'll have to use a wall bracket, and this can push the TV out by quite a lot, and it tends to make the TV look quite imposing. This one in particular, just take seal and improve the overall sound, which ended up working really well and is a step up above how the TV sounded originally due to less resonance. So with all that done, it's finally time to add. Unfortunately, even the smallest one I could find was still too thick, so I stripped it down to its bare components, which are actually surprisingly basic, and I was honestly expecting. The drive used in the DVD player actually wasn't designed to be used vertically, so discs would just fall out before the tray could close. To fix this, I made some little supports with Sugrue, which hold onto the discs well and prevents them from falling out. So with that, the whole thing could be painted, which neatened things up nicely. Now, I've actually managed to retain full access to the signal inputs underneath this cover if I ever need to plug something extra in.
I know.
Hi Albert, how are you?
Good, thank you. Hello.
Hello Albert.
Hello.
You got that set up properly? You know which buttons to use? Right hand side. The top button turns it on. You get a blue light now. You can.
Yeah.
Yep, blue light. Go to the second one, you'll find a channel that you want to look at. Yep.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Well, you're starting already.
No, I haven't started yet.
Well, Albert, thank you for arranging this session, Albert.
Sorry?
Thank you for arranging this Zoom session.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
How many
Always
are you
looking for something to do during the lockdown.
I do online courses then.
Me.
How many are joining us, Albert?
Yeah, I do. Actually, it was my passion for the last almost 30 years. When
What was your passion? Sorry, I missed that.
online learning.
All right, good.
When I did my master degree in education, I did online learning. That was over 40 years ago. So at that time, online learning means you got the information at 300 bytes per second. That means approximately 10 characters per second. That was the speed I started.
Wow.
And then, of course, today we are able to stream video all over the world and multiple stream at the same time. At the moment, I will be streaming this presentation also online to YouTube. So at the moment, there's one concurrent user on YouTube. So hello. Hello, Helen. So that's maybe I get a cup of water first.
This is funny.
And we're using USB, aren't we? Yeah. Next. Set the connection type you want. Connection type. We need wireless connection. No. I don't know that this is.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
How many people have signed up, Albert?
I don't know.
No? We'll find out.
I don't specifically worry about how many people.
Yeah.
No.
Hello. Hello. No.
It's good for the registration stage. I wonder if I can just leave it like that for a while.
Albert,
Yes.
hello, Albert. Look, I have a meeting at this time next week, so I won't be able to watch. Is there any way I can see a recording of the session next week?
I will be doing it live as well, so I can send out the video after the presentation.
That's
So
great. Thank you very much.
which UVA you come from? 15?
Sorry?
Are you coming from Which
Melbourne.
UVA? No, okay.
No,
I will send out the video to all the UVAs that I invited people to come.
that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
So is the today. So today the presentation will also be online. At the moment it is live. So if you want to watch it online at YouTube, you can search my name, Albert Yip, and then you should be able to find it. But after that, the YouTube will have a copy, so people will be able to watch it again. So will be the next two.
Good.
Okay, maybe shall we make a start?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, first of all, I need to share screen first, so just bear with me. And share screen. Come on. Here, this one. So, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, good.
Know the past, inform the future. So this is the first one is on SARS 2003. So we will be looking at three pandemics. One is 2003, another one is 2008, the swine flu, and then the next one, the last one, will be 2019, the current one. Which when I started planning, I thought by now the COVID-19 would have been over, but it looks like it won't, and it seems that we will be having this for some time yet to come. So especially in Victoria here, we have a second wave. So let's see what happens 3 weeks later. Hopefully by then our situation is better. But anyway, the information for this particular presentation comes from this book. This is a book published by the World Health Organization in 2006. This is a review of what had happened. And then, of course, there's a lot of information coming from the Wikipedia. Okay, first the timeline first. Let's look at how it started. It started approximately, it said it on November 16, and there was a outbreak of severe acute respiratory symptoms, and that's where the SARS acronym come from. So it's a severe acute respiratory syndrome, which started in China, Guangdong, which is borders to Hong Kong. So one of the farmer actually got infected with this disease, and later on it spread to many places and involved quite a number of people. But looking back and especially compare with what happened to COVID-19, this 2002-2003 SARS is probably very mild. If we look at, because we will see that very soon. Okay. So by January, one of the super spreader, that means this person has infected quite a number of other patients, checked into the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hospital in Guangzhou on the 31st January. So you see that the first outbreak is in November, but the actual case, which the Chinese know about it, is actually January 31. So people will ask, how do you know that there is an outbreak in November 16? Well, that's tracing back. That means when you identified a contagious disease, then you will start tracing back and looking at the past record, see if there is any similar case, and then you trace back, and that's how we know that, okay, it may have started back in November, but the important thing is we know when the health authority knows that there is a problem. Now, that is a very critical point, especially later on when we discuss COVID-19. We need to know, although people say, okay, he has been with us for, say, 1 year, 2 years, or 1 month, 2 months, etc. But the important thing is, how can we detect this? By February, Hong Kong has quite a number of cases. And still at that time, by February, the main cause of this virus is unknown. We don't know it is a virus. We just know that there is a contagious disease spreading. This contagious spreading actually started spread outside of China, because one of the doctors who treated the patients in Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hospital in Guangdong actually visited Hong Kong and stayed in a hotel. And during that stay, he spread the virus to other patrons in the hotel through contacts on the probably on the elevators. So this doctor, Dr. Liu, stated in room 199 in the 9th floor in the Metropole Hotel on February 21st. He was feeling unwell, but he thought it was just a flu, because this SARS-like symptoms very much like flu. And look at the time, it is also in the flu season. Flu season typically starts in November until March in the Northern Hemisphere in the winter. So he might think, I'm having a flu, so it shouldn't prevent me from whatever. But eventually, he went into a nearby hospital in the intensive care unit, and later on, he died. So at that time, nobody knows what kind of disease is this. They don't know yet. So this is the hotel. It's a very modern hotel in the middle of Kowloon in Hong Kong. It is in a very busy street. Just lucky that one of the major hospital is half a block away from the hotel. Now this is the map. The green room, which is labeled K here, is the room in which this particular doctor stayed. Now, he is a medical doctor, and he is also a specialist in infectious disease. Okay, he stayed in room K, but eventually all the other rooms in blue, the people who stay in these rooms all got infected, presumably because of the lift. Everybody on the floor take the same lift, and therefore it is by touching that the virus has spread to the other people around. One of these guests in the hotel went back to Vietnam and hence spread it to Vietnam. Another Chinese American resident of Shanghai also stay at that hotel at that time, and when he go back, he get sick again. So that's how it spread outside of China, is through a medical doctor. Now, the person you are seeing here is a WHO infectious disease specialist. Okay, he was one of those who examined Chen, the medical doctor, and he noticed that other members in the hospital also become ill. So he knew he is dealing with a very dangerous and very infectious, contagious disease. He himself died as well. So this is very unfortunate. Now by then it is about March. So by March, people realize that there is a very dangerous disease spreading. They still don't know what kind of disease that is. Another one spread to Canada, Toronto, okay? And then he subsequently spread to other people in Canada as well. So is Taiwan. One businessman who had traveled to Hong Kong and then go back to Taipei. In Taipei, they spread it to Taiwan. Almost all these infected people have been either medical staff or family members of people who had fallen ill. It is believed that at that time, affected medical staff were unaware of the risk and were not using respiratory precautions, a safety protocol intended to protect medical workers against highly contagious diseases. The various cases around the world were directly or indirectly traceable to people who had recently visited China. Sorry, I have a call. Sorry. Hello? 喂，係我知道，暫時未有。我而家上緊堂，所以我遲啲同你講好冇？個半鐘頭之後，好，拜拜，對唔住啊，拜拜。Sorry, I have a call from Hong Kong. So this is spreading to the world now. Singapore, same thing. Another person coming back after visiting Hong Kong, and then he started the she started the outbreak in Singapore. Another man from the same hotel was admitted to Prince of Wales Hospital. Now, this Prince of Wales Hospital is one of the big government hospital in Sha Tin in Hong Kong. But there, it spread to at least 99 hospital workers, including 17 medical students, while treating him. So SARS becomes very dangerous and becomes frightening, so to speak, to the hospital staff, because up to now they still don't know what is the disease, why it is spreading so fast. They can only see the symptoms. It's a severe acute respiratory symptoms. It's only seeing the symptoms. They don't know what is the real cause of that. So remember the specialist from WHO. He traveled back to Bangkok to attend a medical conference. On the flight, he already noticed that he is not feeling well, and therefore he told the aircraft that he is having a serious situation and asked nobody to touch him, and then calls an ambulance to take him to the hospital immediately. So this expert know that now I have a problem. I have a contagious disease on my body, and I'm feeling very unwell. So although like that, please don't touch me because I might spread to you. And then asked to ambulance to take him to hospital. And of course, we know that eventually he died. Similar outbreak of this mysterious disease was reported among other healthcare workers in Hong Kong as well. So eventually, on March 12th, WHO issued a global alert about a new infectious disease of unknown origin. At that time, it's still unknown. So it's probably from either Vietnam or Hong Kong, But of course, after several years of investigation, we are now sure that it was started in China. But at that time, it looks like it started in Hong Kong because people who has been in that particular hotel is spreading the virus. And then on March 15, WHO issued a heightened global health alert when it becomes known that Singapore, Canada also have the same issue. So they are giving travel advisory against people traveling to Asia, in particular Hong Kong, Singapore, Vietnam, and China. So if you don't need to go, please don't go. Another very interesting spread is in one of those large department store. Let me show you. I haven't got the pictures. Okay, let me explain. Amoy Gardens is a collection of high-rise buildings. So this is a large estate. In that collection, there's one building which has over 200 cases of this outbreak. So the government quarantined the whole apartment buildings people in a resort camp, holiday camp, and put them there and then got them quarantined. So we need to understand, we need to know why this particular building suddenly had this virus. Well, eventually it was found out that one of the patients in the hotel visited one of his friends in this particular building, and in there he has to go to the toilet. So he go to the toilet and flush the toilet. Unfortunately, for all the toilets, we usually have a U-tube pipe to trap the air. In Hong Kong, the toilet also double as the shower. So the toilet itself, the toilet bowl, will have a water trap. That's true. But on the floor, where people take shower, will have also a smaller U-tube to trap the water. But if you do not need to use the toilet to do shower, then it is very likely that U-tube water there will evaporate and become dry, and therefore it's no longer acted as a trap. So when the patients flush the toilet, the virus actually airborne and goes through that pipe into the other apartments' toilets, and therefore the other people in the building got infected. So from now on, we know we now started to understand if you have a toilet, you better keep that U-tube water filled in order to stop any return of virus coming from there. By April, the Chinese medical officials began reporting the status of SARS outbreaks. They are now starting to realize this is a very serious case. Now, at that time, they have 361 new infections and 9 deaths. Now, compare that number with today. Remember this number because we will be referencing this number when we talk about COVID-19 later on, 2 weeks later. So, when we have 300-something infections and 9 deaths, Chinese officials started to act. Now, put that in perspective. In a normal season, a normal flu season, with a population of about 1/5 of China, United States. Typically, in a flu season, they will have about 18,000 to 200,000 flu-like symptoms cases. Now, that is a minimum estimate. So out of, say, let's take a round number, okay, 100,000 cases. 100,000 cases, 361 similar case with 9 deaths. Would that trigger the public health authority to say, wow, we have a infectious disease which is very similar to flu, and in the peak of the flu season, and then pick it up? So we understand that detecting the virus is very, very difficult, especially you don't know what you are looking for. You just know that you have a disease, and well, we have disease. So what causes this? It might be bacteria, it might be virus, it might be other things. So at that time, it was very difficult. So on April 19, the Premier Wan Jiabo at that time realized that it's a very important case, and then asked all the public officials in China that you must report this case in a timely manner, otherwise you will be punished. There will be severe consequences for local officials who do not report SARS cases. So China started to look at the data and say, we need to know what is happening in the local people, how many people are being actually infected. So in one day, the number jumped up suddenly when the government said you have to report. So everybody started reporting. And at the beginning, there was some under-reporting, but now probably everybody is reporting accurately. Eventually, by May 4th, the newly infected people in Hong Kong dropped to a single digit. And then on May 19th, Hong Kong, the tourist warning is lifted. And then on May 20, the WHO refused to, sorry, I misread this part. On May 4th, the number dropped to a single digit. So about 2 weeks later, our normal quarantine time, okay, Hong Kong asked for lifting the tourist warning, but next day it refused. But eventually, another 4 days later, the tourist warning was lifted for Hong Kong and Guangdong. So eventually on May 24th, no new infected patients, but the case is still happening elsewhere in Toronto, another 20 cases. And on May 29th, more than 5,000 people is quarantined in Canada. On May 31st, Singapore is removed from the list of infected areas. So there's a global impact. So let's look at how big is the impact. This is a diagram in which, come back. So all the area is infected. So quite a bit. Asia mostly, Canada, Australia as well. So this is how it's spread to. For Africa, only South Africa is infected, and for the South America is only Colombia, but the rest is mostly in Asia and United States, in America. This is the number of cases per day between 15 November to about late April. So we we know that there is a significant amount of them are healthcare workers. Healthcare workers is very much heated at this time. This one is for Hong Kong. Similar map, probably is a different. The time is different, slightly different. Is a bit later than the one before. This one, the peak is in about 7th February, and this one, the peak is around late March. This one is in Vietnam, is also March, but early March. This one is in Taipei. It is in late April to early May. So different places have different time of starting this pandemic. Canada has 2 spikes, the second wave. Okay, so one is in early March, another one in late May. This one is the Amoy Garden. So there's quite a number of people infected there. Sorry, this one is in Chinese, but on the right hand side it says the possible number of infections. On the right hand side is the death rate. The death rate here is very high. SARS death rate is, the peak is around 22%. That means out of 100 people, 20 will die. So it's a pretty high death rate at the peak. The average is the blue line there. The blue line is the average death rate of all.
Albert, I've got a question, Albert.
Sorry?
I've got a question.
Yep, okay, please.
I take it this is a new virus. How long did it take for the test to be developed to confirm the SARS cases?
Now, for this particular one, it took almost three months to realize that it is a virus. And then the test take another month to develop for 2003.
Right.
Okay, so again, remember that in our mind, and then
if the first cases happened in November 2002, they didn't have a test until what about March 2003?
Yeah. Oh no, they know that it is a virus in March, and the test come out at around May. And most of this data is retrospective. They take the sample and then retrospectively test whether it is SARS.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because the timeline didn't work otherwise.
Yeah, and therefore we understand this timeline. At that time, there's no so-called protocol to handle this situation.
Yeah.
Everything is so new, and then people are struggling to understand what's happening, and don't even know that it is a virus.
Yeah.
They just know that people are dying.
Yes.
Now, China, from denial into mass mobilization. That's very typical for any government. If you don't know what it is, you keep on denying it until you can't deny it anymore, and then suddenly you kick into action. So that is typical for most government, I suppose, and China included. So the SARS virus estimate to cost the Asian economy about 60 billion US dollars. It started in China. The international community and the media also keep up the pressure to respond. But once the Chinese central government realized that it need to seriously tackle this new disease, then the turnaround was very impressive. So I will show you what is the turnaround. At that time, just like this time, hospital is real ill prepared. they don't have sufficient mask, gloves, or personal protective equipments. The hospital doesn't know what to do, and that's why so many medical staff are being affected, because there's no particular protocol. Nobody knows what to do. So now it comes to some problems. The hospital had the capacity to treat and isolate all cases and suspect cases. And could the virus be prevented from spreading out of the cities? So these are the two major concerns. So once they started to act, so the first thing to do is close all cinemas, karaoke bars, libraries, internet cafes, swimming pools, anywhere which people can gather together, close it. So China is using this stop the spreading path of the virus. We don't know what it is, but we know it is spreading. So without contact, it shouldn't spread. So isolation, social isolation. This is something we now heard of quite often now today with COVID-19. But thinking back, that is 2003. Nobody knows what to do. And school closed, 1.7 million students affected, business vanished, restaurants closed. Well, they had to voluntarily close because after all, there's no foot traffic. Nobody is visiting restaurants, so they better close that rather than just open up. So streets are empty. The traffic dropped down to a quarter of the normal. Public life come to a standstill. In all, 30,000 people are quarantined in Beijing. Many more perhaps voluntarily isolate themselves. For example, in Nanjing, about 10,000 people are quarantined as well. And China has this reaction coming from an old civilization. Now, unlike here, we are migrant societies. So most people come here and then settle here for only 1 or 2 generations, maybe up to 4 and 10. That's it. But for people in China, they were on that piece of land for tens of thousands of years. So they have been there. So there is a very tight-knit connections at this very local level. So what they do, most of the villages now started to block any visitors from visiting their village because they are afraid of these visitors bringing the virus to them. Now, to them, they don't know it's virus, but they know if I block visitors coming, my village will be safe because it won't happen suddenly. It has to be spread from some people. So by stopping people from coming in, then I will protect my village. So this mass activation of social isolation started. So again, this is what I'm talking about. The grassroots structure now kick into action. People are asking any people coming in to have a screening and stop them from coming and so forth. And of course, that means tourism is down. This disease put the China's health agenda back into political focus. People need to do something. So the Chinese government decided to act. Okay, I think I want to skip this so that we have a bit of time for discussion. So I'll go over that. Come on. Okay, the impact on Beijing. This is traffic. Oh, sorry. Come back. Come back. Okay, this is traffic. The background there is the number of cases per day. And then the red line is the train passenger. And the blue line is the bus passengers. You see that it drops when, as soon as the peak comes, then people start moving. This means it people are kicked into action to self-isolate, but it only happens at the peak, and when it happens, then it starts dropping. The number of new cases starts dropping. That means this social isolation actually works. When it come up to a certain point, the Beijing government tell everybody we have an infectious disease, don't move, stay at home. People stop moving. When it stop moving, the number of cases drop. Something similar here. This one is about other kind of growth, including GDP, etc., etc. Of course, with the virus there, everything got a hit, but very quickly it bounced back. It is a V-shaped recovery. Now, the problem to us as well for COVID-19 is, can we have a V-shaped recovery, or are we going to see an L? L means you have up and then you drop down and then stay low. Now that is very bad. We want to have a V-shaped recovery. We know that for COVID, for anything like that, it will have a hit on us in terms of GDP, in terms of cargo moving, in terms of everything. But can we have a V-shaped recovery? That is the question.
Albert,
Yep.
I've got a question.
Yep.
It's very apparent that there is no second wave. So as the economy opens up, there is no second wave.
Yep. For China, they don't have a second wave, but for, I think I remember we saw in Canada there's a second wave. So
what inference can we draw from that?
That means the isolation work, and then you have to kill it completely. Don't kill it partially. You don't do it completely like what we did in Victoria here. We have a second wave. So if we have done a good job in the first time, kill everything, then we don't have a second wave. And that is what we are seeing in the other states in Australia. They don't have a second wave, but we didn't do a good job. So we have a second wave, and the second wave hit us.
That graph on the screen there, did they drop down to actually 0 cases in June, did they?
Yep. I will tell you why, okay? How they do that. Very soon.
Spectacular.
Yeah. It is a very spectacular drop. But how they do that? Okay. Again, this is in Chinese. I skip it over because that is for me.
Well, but give us a break.
Okay, now from here onward, it is in Chinese because I gathered this information from China. This slide is the name of a temporary hospital. Okay, China started to build a temporary hospital to handle this situation, specifically in a place called Xiutongshan. Okay, Xiutongshan Hospital. That's the word here. So it means it is the name of hospital. It is about 35 kilometers from Beijing. So this hospital is built in 7 days and 7 nights. That means in 1 week, China built a 2.5 million square temporary building. 2.5 million square, a large building to handle this in 7 days. So at the moment, this hospital is now all empty. And okay, let's just skip over to look at the pictures, and then I'll explain what happened there. Come on, I want to jump to the pictures. Okay, now we see the Beijing in the middle, almost middle, a little bit lower part of the middle. This is Beijing. In the north, there's a Google pointer. Okay, that's where this hospital is built. So it's 35 kilometers away from the middle of Beijing, somewhere there. And this is the overview. It consists of the lower part is the hospital itself, where they treat the patients, and then on the upper part is where the patients will stay. So it is near originally is a retirement hospital. Okay, the lower part indicate the retirement hospital, and then they build it on just in a probably is a empty space there. So they separate into the east and the west. So the thing which is all white is the east area, and the thing which is with a little bit of blue is the west wings. So they build it in two wings. This picture is not the picture for building that hospital. This is the picture for building the hospital this time. But we will imagine you have the similar something. A lot of machinery comes in to level off the ground. But we don't have the picture of that time doing that. So I took a picture from this year. But this is the picture there now. People, China, the only thing China has is people. There's lots and lots of people. So lots of people just gather there and work on parallel. You see that they are using prefabricated containers. So you can see that actually it is container cases and containers. So they install everything in the factory, in the container, and shift the container there, and then set it into the location. So people there are doing the installations. Of course, they will need air conditionings, and people are working on it. So again, the mass production. This is how it looks like on the ground. So these are all container cases. You can now recognize this is everyone is similar because it is containers, container, etc., etc. Okay, so what they need to do is first of all level all the ground, get the ground leveled, and then put a waterproofing fabric on the ground before they pour the concrete, because they don't want any of this waste water, especially, to infiltrate into the ground. If you have this wastewater from this infectious disease hospital leak into the ground, it might contaminate the underground water. So the first thing they have to do is isolate the ground so that any wastewater will not be infiltrated into the ground. So after that, they pour the concrete. After concrete is poured in, they put on the container. But when the concretes are poured, they need to make sure that all the electrical supplies, communication supplies, etc., are all laid there, so that when the containers come in, drop it there, they just have to connect to water, to electricity, to air conditionings, and so forth. And they also have two passages. This one is showing the patient's passage. Patient's passage means this area is contaminated. The patients are carrying disease there. So any medical personnel in this region must be in full PPE, personal protective equipment. This hospital started operation in May the 1st, and the last patient left the hospital in June 23rd. So it operated for about 2 months, slightly less than 2 months, a week less than 2 months. What is good about that is they got a zero infection of medical staff. Nobody is infected because now they understand they are handling a very contagious disease and they put in place the proper protocol. So as I showed you before, there is a passage only mainly for the patients, and this passage, when the medical professional comes in, must be in full PPE. Sorry? Is that a question? Okay, let's move on. Now, this is the medical staff. On the last day, they are celebrating that the job is finished. No more patients. So, unfortunately, for these medical staff, they were called from everywhere in China to work in this hospital. So they have left their family for about 2 months now. So obviously they have been working closely together. You notice how closely tied they are, how happy they are when they finish the job. They planned to have a tour around Beijing. Beijing has a lot of good places to visit. But unfortunately, after these photos, they are all sent back to home to work again because of problems there. So this is one of the things they said they want to have a reunion. But I don't know whether the reunion actually happened or not. But that is over 18 years ago. So 16 years ago. So hopefully they already have their reunion.
Excuse me, Albert.
Sorry?
When they were working there, were they all housed in the one building, or did they go back to their own hotel?
They don't. They are all housed together. Yeah, they are not seeing anybody except their colleagues. They are also isolated for 2 months. Okay. Some people has gone in to take a photograph 7 years later. So that will be 2010. Now remember, we are now 2020. So that hospital built in 1 week. What it looks like 7 years after being used. Some equipment still left there. The windows with all kinds of dirt. The signs are all broken and rusted. Some beds there, everything is in disrepair. 7 years. Nature has their method. The hospital beds are rusting. Some of the carton box which provide them with equipment still left there. Nobody's cleaning them up. Of course, some of the glasses are broken and some of the buildings is torn apart by wind and snow or whatever. Just 7 years, okay? Just 7 years.
I took a reading 10 minutes ago.
Nature is amazing.
Exactly.
You live alone in 7 years, it is like that.
Make another time with him?
No, in 1 year.
These are some of their personal equipments, serious stuff. They have a breathing apparatus to shield their whole face.
And it's gone.
And this is what happened. After a little bit of cleaning, all the plants collect together. Trees are down. Windows. 7 years. Just 7 years. Some buildings are actually all broken down. It is, well, the purpose served. The hospital built in 7 days served its purpose and then left alone there. Okay, so that is my presentation, and we are now ready for discussion. So let me stop share. Yep.
Mine, darling.
Okay, any question?
Albert, why was that temporary hospital allowed to go into a state of ruin like that?
Now, this is a temporary hospital, okay? So it is built only for one purpose. It is not a general purpose hospital. And the personnel there is gathered from the rest of the country. So every province donate some medical professionals, maybe 10, 20. And when the job is finished, they have to go back home and do whatever they have to do. And therefore, this building has no people to manage. People just go back to their work because it is an emergency. In the emergency, people put down their job, put down their life for 2 months, come here, work, isolated from everybody else. When you finish, you want to go back to your own life. So people gone. When nobody is looking after it, so it will go into disrepair. Yes, please. What?
Albert, I've got two questions, Albert. One is, was the original source of SARS ever identified?
Sorry, again, I'm not very.
And my second question is, compared to COVID-19,
Yep.
with SARS, the Chinese government seemed to do a very good job of controlling it and limiting the number of cases and number of deaths.
Yep.
Which is in marked contrast to what's happened with COVID-19.
Yep.
Where reportedly the Chinese government was very slow in advising the WHO. They tried to hide the outbreak with COVID-19. So it seems the Chinese government did not learn the lessons from SARS.
You are absolutely wrong, unfortunately. You're absolutely wrong. We here is being brainwashed by Western media. That's why I want to present 2003 to you first, and then I will present to you the timeline for the COVID-19. I will show you the timeline 2 weeks later. Okay, so that we can compare. The Chinese government learned their lesson a lot. Now, remember from this particular presentation, the first case presumably is in November 2002. And WHO is advised in March. At that time, China has about 400 cases with 9 deaths. Now, that is the number. And then it is also in the flu season. I have already told you, for example, in America, in a flu season, we are looking at over 100,000 cases of flu-like symptoms. So flu is coughing, respiratory problem, etc. So this is very similar. So out of about 400 cases of God knows how many in China, let's say China has 5 times the population. So out of 500,000 cases, when you have about 400 cases, then how do you alert the medical professional say, oh, we have a problem at hand? Now that is a very difficult judgment. So we have to take that better in mind. And 2003, the Chinese government have no protocol to follow. Everything is invented on as it go. But after that, they have learned the lesson. So I will show you that in 2 weeks later. Yes, Helen?
Can I ask you, in the beginning, where did the person in the fish market, where did he get the SARS virus from? Which animal?
Now for that one, it is from, I think it's from bat.
Bat.
Yeah, similar to what is this time. because they
Okay,
are
thank
both
you.
of them are coronal virus, so it's the same type of virus. So
Okay, thank
so
you.
very similar virus.
Albert, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
And it has nothing to do with this lecture today, but I was part of your last series about China.
Yep.
And I don't know what happened, but the few of us logged in, but you weren't there, so I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, I missed the session where you had a series on from the Chinese perspective about Hong Kong, and I never saw it. I'd love to be able to get a copy of that. Is that possible at all?
Yes, I hope so. I will take out that and then we'll send it out to you. Let me start to write it down first.
Will you just do it on a general email or what?
Do people object to I send it to general email?
That's
No.
fine.
No,
That's fine. Okay, so I will
it's okay.
send it to general email. So if you like to watch. You don't. No problem.
Lovely.
Okay, is
That would be, you
the
won't forget. That'd be really appreciated.
China's on Hong Kong. That one. Okay, I'll write it down. So I will take it out of this.
Albert,
Thank you so much.
you know, you said SARS started from a farmer. Did they were they able to track back and sort of see, you know, exactly where he caught it from?
Yep. For 2003, yes, they did. And that's why the reference book I refer to is from 2006. So it's 3 years later. So after they have do all the research, wrote the report, that is the WHO report. I got the information from the WHO report.
Mm-hmm.
So they trace it back and to the origin, because once you isolated the virus, they eventually also do the DNA to sequence the DNA and then match it back. But in terms of that, you have to imagine the difficulty of identifying the virus. The virus size is a few microns, so probably 70, 80 microns. So that will be about 1,000 times smaller than the width of our hair. So that is very, very small objects. So if you want to look at it, you have to use an electron microscope. So when you have a patient having big problem, you probably collect some fluid from the patients, maybe blood, maybe what's that? The thing coming from the mouth, from the nose, etc. You collect a whole lump of different samples, and then you give it to the laboratory and ask, I want to see what is new here.
Mm-hmm.
So for the laboratory, they don't even know what to look for. They don't even know what to look for. And then out of this massive amount of specimens, they eventually some people hit on the idea that it might be virus. And then they started doing DNA. And then from DNA sequence, they started to find out, there's one DNA sequence which is not common in human. It is from another sequence from the bats. Now, DNA sequence are very, very long letters of 4 different letters, okay? It's a DNA sequence, very, very long. We are talking about at least 1 million characters. Out of that 1 million characters, and again, you have a number of different DNA overlapping to each other. You have the patient's original DNA, and we have the virus DNA, and the virus DNA is much shorter than the humans. So probably they will look for the short sequence, okay? Get the short sequence out, and then use that to map again known viruses. And then they find, hey, we find that this sequence contains viruses from 2 different parts. This is a new one. We haven't seen it, and therefore they know that they have a new virus. Sorry, Noel.
That's okay, Albert. I just wanted to ask, what does SARS? What's it an acronym for? What do the letters stand for? SARS.
A severe acute respiratory symptoms.
Sorry, say that again.
Severe acute. Let me just get that words for you again. From
I've got it.
Yeah.
Acute respiratory system.
Yeah, acute respiratory, severe acute respiratory symptoms.
Got it.
So
Okay,
they
thank
only
you.
got the symptoms. Yes,
Albert,
please.
when you travel in Asia, many people wear masks. Did that occur before the SARS, and did that help the SARS be stopped in its tracks? Or have people worn masks since SARS?
They started wearing masks in SARS. Before that, the Asian people doesn't wear masks just like us. Of course, masks exist in very cold weather. When you go out in the cold weather, you want to hide everybody. So we have masks for warmth, okay? But it was not common to wear masks in a daily situation. But 2003 SARS case changed the behavior of Asians. So Asians now wear masks when they are not feeling well. In order to protect others. And there's no stigma against that because everybody is not accustomed to, you are a good person. You are not feeling well, you wear a mask to protect us from your virus. So I think that is a very important attitude we need to develop in here. Wearing mask is protecting other people. It's not protecting me. Mask is more about your virus spreading out. So that I think that is a very important thing we need to start talking about to understand. Yes, please.
Albert?
Yeah.
When you live in Asia, you just take it for granted that people are...
Yep. Sorry.
Somebody's having a phone conversation over in the background. Sorry. When you live in Asia, it's just as you said, it's common for people, if they've got a bit of a cold or something like that, they just immediately wear masks and nobody thinks anything of it.
Yeah. After SARS, people appreciate other people wearing masks.
Yeah.
It's because it means you don't want to spread your disease to other people. So it is a altruist. Is that called altruist? Is that altruist? Altruistic. Yeah, it's an altruistic act. So I think we need to promote this idea of wearing masks as an altruist. Yes, please.
I think, Albert, with all these things, it's difficult for governments around the world to yell at too early if something's starting to develop, because it may not be as big as it is, and it might just be like the flu, or if there's no flu season. As you said, in China, there was only 400 cases. That's nothing. When in the flu season, they get 100,000. So you delay it and see what happens. If you start to close things down, people would complain and not comply. They'd have a people's revolution. So the same thing sort of happens here in Australia, Victoria. Back in January, February, when you're learning it's increasing overseas and it comes here, you take some precautions, but they're the lower level ones, and then you increase as necessary. It's very hard to come in hard to start with. Let's say right in February we said we're going to close everything down for months, don't go anywhere. You know, we'd have a revolt. So that's very difficult to call the tune. And then when it gets going, there's too much of it, so it's got to go for longer.
Isn't that what New Zealand did?
New Zealand did a very good job. They closed down everything, and then now they are clean. And that is exactly what is wrong with America as well. United States. They have now over 5 million cases with over 160,000 deaths. It's just a tragic. Just tragic. So now, in terms of the COVID-19, it started in China in January, put it that way. China, the first case spotted is late Christmas Day 2019 in the about I think it's Christmas Day, 25th December in the morning. One daughter realized that a family of 3, 2 of them comes to the hospital with a flu-like symptoms.
Albert, can you ask that lady?
Oh, shut up, Raymond.
Can you ask that lady to put the phone?
Mute her. Mute her.
Who's on the phone?
Okay, I will try to mute. Okay, it's on mute. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Albert. That's good. It was annoying.
Okay. Now, I don't want you to mute everybody because you probably want to ask a question, but maybe I have to set it to mute everybody when you come in, and when you want to talk, you raise your hand. Do you know how to raise hand?
Do that. Mute everyone. We'll ask them. Put your hands up.
Yeah.
That'd be better, Albert.
Yeah.
Mute everyone.
Okay.
I think some people in another room don't appreciate.
Okay, I have muted everybody. So you have something to ask, you raise a hand. But if you have your video off, I don't see your raising hand. But I think that's better. Okay, now next time I will mute everybody by default. Okay, you want to talk, unmute yourself. I will allow you to unmute yourself. Yes, please. No, you have to unmute yourself first.
Albert, what do you think about Donald Trump calling COVID-19 the Kung flu?
That is his political move.
Yeah.
It's just political. I think what is happening in the United States is that Donald Trump had done such a bad job. He need to put the blame on somebody else.
Yes.
And especially this is an election year.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So very unfortunate. Yes, please.
Albert, how many people actually died from SARS worldwide?
I think I can give you a number later on. I've forgotten to check, but not many. Okay. I think it's less than 10,000. Put it that way. But
And
not.
was it more cases? What was the percentage of cases that died?
Oh, that is high. Now at the peak, it's about 22% people die. 1 out of 5. It's a lot of people.
Less people had the disease, but a greater percentage died.
Yeah, but on average, it's about 1 in 10, 11% death rate.
But it was a much less virulent virus, wasn't it, than COVID?
Now, the problem with the current COVID-19 is that it is spreadable when it is asymptomatic. When you don't have any symptoms, you are still a spreader.
Yeah.
But SARS is not. SARS is not a spreader if you are not asymptomatic. You show no symptoms, you don't spread.
Yeah.
Yes, please. You have to unmute yourself.
SARS was quite different. It affected all age groups, and the first symptoms usually were temperatures. So it was more evident. And correct me if I'm wrong, but because they felt it petered out, they never bothered to continue with the vaccine, did they?
Yeah.
And this 19 is actually a mutation of that first SARS.
Whether it's a mutation or not, we don't know, but they are similar. In certain cases, they are all both coronavirus. And it also started from probably from an animal transport to a human. And for example, we also heard that, for example, some people do a retrospective investigation in I think in Spain back in March 2019. They detected SARS in their sewage.
Yeah.
So that was a long time ago. But how that SARS suddenly
it was a more evident disease. You didn't have people that were asymptomatic like you do with COVID.
Yeah.
Did you?
COVID is
affected all age groups.
Yeah.
COVID is actually called SARS-2.
Yeah. So that's
Yes,
why I
it's
call
very
SARS
similar,
2
but-
because it's similar
Yeah.
to SARS.
Yeah.
Yes.
Albert, I remember when you did this before a couple of years ago, and you were talking about the masks and if they're reusable to make sure, or towels, to put them out in the sun for time, make sure they are dry, and then the sun killing the viruses. So, and again, I saw separately somewhere that the viruses aren't alive; they're inert by themselves. So, if they're inert by themselves, it only needs a living body to attach to, and then they develop. How long can they remain inert for? Is that known at all?
It depends. It's known. People have done some research on the survivability of viruses on different surfaces. So different surfaces will have different survivability, and also under different moisture conditions.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a whole range of different environmental factors which affect on the survivability of a virus. Now, the virus itself is you're accurate that the virus itself is not living. It is a package, a small package with a outer membrane with DNA inside. Now, this outer membrane has some hooks all over the membrane. Here's our human cell. Okay. When the virus comes in, if the hook is not correct, then the virus cannot enter. Our membrane will make sure nobody is coming into me, into my inside of my cell, unless you have the correct key. And if this virus have the correct key, it can come in. So it will inject its DNA into my cell. Then my own mechanism here will start replicating the virus DNA and producing more and more viruses until my cell bursts, and then spreading all the viruses to other cells nearby. And then it gets exponential. It gets spreading, and then eventually we got sick. So yes,
So would I be right in saying that if, as you said before, you put a towel or something out in the sun, they will not live, it actually kills them. But if it's somewhere in the shade and it's dry, they could remain inert for maybe an extremely long time, maybe quite some years.
Yeah, maybe.
Then get disturbed and they could transfer with moisture and heat and touch contact. It could transfer into a disease into animals or humans.
Yeah. Well, it depends on different types of virus. Some viruses survive very long, some don't. And why we put it in the sun is the ultraviolet light from our sun will destroy its outer membrane. Its outer membrane destroyed, that means the DNA inside will also be broken by the ultraviolet light, and therefore the virus die, so to speak. Here, maybe I will take a few minutes to explain the mechanism of mask. How masks work. Now, we must know that the virus we are talking about is micron in size. So we are talking about 60, 70 microns. And our mask, any mask, are made up of fibers. Okay, there are different fibers linked together. The gap between the fiber is of millimeters, maybe 0.1 millimeters and so forth. But 0.1 millimeters to microns is about 100 to 200 times the size of the virus. So it's basically like you have a door, which is 20 meters, and you are the virus passing through the door. So your mask do not block the virus coming through. Now, if it is a plastic film which block, that means we can't breathe. No use. So we need a a mask which will allow air to pass through, at the same time trap the virus. So how that can be done? Well, two actions. If you put on the mask yourself, when you sneeze and so forth, your particles coming from you is blocked by the fiber. So a large amount of them is being blocked, and therefore only a little bit is coming out. So that helps to protect. That is about 70% efficiency. So you block about 70% of the viruses coming from you out of your mask. Now that is the outgoing. What about for incoming? That means I'm wearing a mask to protect myself. So what would that be? Depends on different kind of mask. If you are wearing a cloth-made mask with nothing, your protection is 5%. Only blocking about 5%, so it's basically useless. But you're using a surgical mask, then you will have about 90% blockage. Now, what's the difference between a surgical mask and a normal mask? A surgical mask will have 3 layers. The outer layer is water repellent, so that any droplet coming in here will not be absorbed into the fiber and then will drop off. So that is the first protection. Any particles coming in carried by water is not passing through. So number one, you block some of them. The inner layer is only for your comfort, so there's no blockage. The most important thing is the middle layer. The middle layer is an insulator. This insulator should have been charged by static electricity. With static electricity, that means your particle coming in, your virus coming in, is attracted by electrostatic force to the media, and therefore being blocked. So if you want to reuse your surgical mask, you must dry it and then recharge it. What do we mean by recharge? That means you want to make sure your surgical mask still have that static electricity. Now, we know that, for example, when we are in winter here, we take off our clothes, we will see blah, 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 all kinds of static electricity coming off. Friction can produce static charge. So in order to start recharge your surgical mask, use a hot air dryer. Blow your hot air through the mask for approximately 10 minutes. Your hot air will charge your middle layer back to its electrostatic situation, which you can reuse. So if you want to reuse your surgical mask, first of all, when you take it back home, you don't know whether there is virus on that now, so you better kill it first by soaking it in 50 degrees or above hot water for at least half an hour. So use hot water. You don't need boiling water, just hot water that you cannot stand. It's too hot for your finger. That is the temperature you need. Put it there for about 30 minutes and then dry it. After drying, use a hot air dryer to blow through it for about 10 minutes. Then you have a recharged surgical mask to use. Yes, Rose?
I think they're saying with the surgical masks that they're just single use only. So
Yeah.
you use them once and then you should throw them away.
Yeah, yes. You should use it for once because most people do not know how to recharge it.
Okay.
So if you want to reuse it, yes, you can, but you must recharge it. That is the...
Albert,
yeah.
Albert, I've got a question going back to WHO. I'm wondering how extensive the WHO report into SARS was. And I'm wondering if you've heard anything about how the current investigation of COVID is going. Because initially there was a lot of pushback by China about with the WHO investigation. Now, I heard that there are scientists and researchers in China now looking at Wuhan and looking at how COVID-19 actually started. Have you heard how that's going?
Now, in terms of WHO itself depends on different countries to report their cases. WHO do not have specialists all over the world. They have to depend on different countries to report their cases. Okay, so that's about WHO. Now, in terms of investigation of the origin of COVID-19, China fully support that. 100%. What China opposes is political investigation of COVID-19. They object being used as a political, what's that called? Blame,
Scapegoat.
Scapegoat. Yes, they refuse to be a scapegoat. But in terms of investigation, they are very more than happy to be. Sorry, I have another call from. Hello? Hello?
这是 Australia Post 澳洲邮局最后一次语音通知，您有一份重要快件派。
Another, what's that called? Phishing. Yeah, China supports the scientific investigation of the origin of COVID-19. They are actually doing it right now. And of course, they're also doing
China actually did try and deflect though in the early days because China was blaming American servicemen for actually starting the virus.
Well, when you don't know the source and then when people are pointing fingers, the fingers are pointing the wrong way. I think that's wrong. But when I present it 2 weeks later, you will see a different timeline. My timelines come from news in China. Okay, so there's people tracking the news. So if you really know what is being reported in China, you look at the Chinese newspapers or Chinese news source. So I do that. I base this when I present into the COVID-19 2 weeks later. I'm presenting the news, the sequence from the Chinese newspaper. I'm not looking at the sequence from the Western newspapers because they are secondhand. We better when we say China is not reporting it. Well, China closed up Wuhan on January 23rd.
It was too late then.
No, you have to know when is the first time. First one
the virus by then was already in America and in Europe by then. It was too late.
Maybe, but
no, maybe it was too late.
No, put it this way: if it was in America by January, America should have a outbreak in mid-February latest. It took the quarantine date is 2 weeks. Okay, so if they leak it out on January 23rd, by then it's already leaked out. Okay, so let's put it at end of January, 31st January. Okay, the people carrying this virus is now everywhere in the world by January 31st. 2 weeks later, that will be mid-February, right? Mid-February should be every places bursting with this virus. 2 weeks quarantine. If it is no cases in 2 weeks, the virus didn't come from China then. It must have come somewhere else. China is the first country to detect COVID-19. It doesn't mean China is the origin of COVID-19. It is the first country to detect this. But who knows it's come from? And that's why China is very interested to know the origin.
So you're saying the virus? Are you really saying the virus did not originate in China?
We don't know.
Is this what you're saying?
I say we don't know. I say China
Albert,
is the first
Albert,
country
I
to
think we do know,
detect
Albert.
this.
I
Okay?
think we do know.
We don't know. Yes,
I think we
this
do.
is a scientific question. We still need
No.
scientists to trace it back. Well, look at the facts on the ground. China closed off its international traffic and Wuhan on 23rd January.
Too late.
Okay,
It's gone.
so when is the outbreak in, say, Italy? When the outbreak in Italy started? In March.
So, February, March.
March. Now, you say if it is February the 1st or February the 2nd, about the same time as China, then China spread it out together. Okay, we are in the same boat.
No, can't agree.
Okay, I will leave that when we have the data.
That's your
Okay.
opinion, Rod.
Yeah, it's my
Yeah,
opinion.
we will
No, it's
leave
not
that
just my
for
opinion.
when we have data.
It's not just my opinion.
I know.
I think we might have a better view, overall view once Albert's done the lecture on COVID.
Yeah, when we did the lecture on COVID, and then we will have more information, and I will base on my presentation on facts, and then the interpretation is up to us to interpret the data. But I will present you with facts. So that's the purpose, and then you will make up your mind whether your interpretation is accurate in terms of the facts. Okay, so any more?
No,
Okay.
Thank you, Albert. I have to go, so we'll see you next week.
Okay,
Albert.
thank you everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you
Thank you
next
very
week.
much, Albert. Appreciate
Next
it.
week
Don't
is
forget-
on
very
swine
much.
flu.
Albert, don't forget the the Chinese version of Hong Kong.
Yep, I'm going to do it right now before I
Thank you
forget.
very much.
And for me
Thanks,
too,
Albert. Really good.
Albert.
Really good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
thank you.
Bye, Albert.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Yep.